I'm Leah Mena. Welcome to Stories of Estrangement, the podcast where we delve into the complexities of family, friendship, and the ties that sometimes break. Together, we'll explore the paths that lead to estrangement, the emotions that come with it, and the ways that people navigate life beyond it. Whether you're seeking understanding, support, or simply a space to reflect, this is where we unpack the stories, challenges, and lessons of living with distance in relationships. Today, I want to go ahead and share a little bit of my story of estrangement that brought me to this work, and that's the estrangement with my father. I'm nervous about sharing it for a number of reasons. I'm worried about being judged. I'm worried about retaliation. I'm worried I'm not going to be able to express myself well. And so I'm just going to go ahead and try and explain what my memories of what happened to me are and what led to our estrangement. Listening to this podcast is not any replacement for therapy, but there is something that might be helpful for people if this episode is a trigger and you recognize yourself in some of what I'm saying. There's something that's called the ACE, and it stands for the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. I'm going to put a link to it in the bio. And you can take the quiz and understand a little bit about some of the risk factors. The ACE study doesn't address the positive experiences that you have had in your life, but it can help you understand some context for how you experience stress and anxiety or trauma in your adult life. So I think it's worth looking into if you have the inclination. So here I go. I think that most people would tell you that my parents are memorable and interesting people. They were married when they had me and my sister. They had sort of an alternative lifestyle, even for the time in the 70s. They had a monkey named Harley Davidson. They had chickens. They had a beautiful dog named Cannabis Sativa, and they built a geodesic dome in the woods. And I grew up with huge parties in our house with live bands and cocaine and marijuana and alcohol, and sometimes even a grown-up that we didn't know that was sleeping in our bed. But I still love loud music and experimental construction. And my sister and I even had a room that we shared that had a trapeze in it and monkey bars. There was also a rope that you could use to climb to the roof of the dome whenever I wanted. And we lived in the woods and we had a lot of freedom. But when I was 7, my mom left my father and my sister and I, and she left for a woman. My dad got custody at that time. It was the 80s. My mom didn't think she could get custody. And that's something that my dad used to say to us actually all the time. He was trying to defame my mother, and he would tell my sister and I angrily, he would tell us to never marry a lesbian. And this would always make us laugh. We would, even as little kids, we knew, I think if we wanted to marry a woman, wouldn't we want her to be gay? His version of himself was like a fun single dad. And I think he could get a lot of credit for a lot of fun that we did have. But that wasn't the whole picture for me. His moods could change drastically. And my sister and I lived in a lot of fear. I moved in with my mom when I was 13. And when I was 15, I had my first estrangement with my dad. We had gone on a weekend trip into the city, which was about a 6-hour drive from where we lived. It was 1991. And there was some kind of confrontation that made my dad blow up. He was so mad that he drove away in the car without us. And he didn't leave us for long. He turned around and picked us back up. And we didn't speak on that 6-hour car ride home. And when we got home, we packed up and we went to our mom's. And then we didn't talk to him for almost 2 years. So I went through a large part of high school with no contact with him whatsoever. A couple of times he would show up at a soccer game, kind of be on the sidelines, and he would stay on the other side of the field from where I would play, and he wouldn't speak to me. And I still have a difficult time articulating what a mind game it was. I couldn't concentrate on what I was doing. I wouldn't want to see him, but then there's a part of me that felt like happy or felt that maybe he did love me and I'm worthy of his love if he showed up. It was incredibly confusing. And eventually, when I was 17, we made some inroads again. I had already applied for colleges and gone through that process, and I had gotten into Mount Holyoke College. And I gratefully received an amazing financial aid package with scholarships. And Mount Holyoke, I will say, has been one of the greatest interventions of my life. And in the financial aid package that I got from Mount Holyoke, I needed to come up with $4,000 a year outside of loans and scholarships. And that first year, my parents both chipped in to pay that. And then in March of 1995, my father wrote me this letter, and we didn't talk for another 2 years after that.
Dear Leah, this is a most difficult letter to write, one that I have put off for a while. Relationships between people involve opinions, not facts. One thing I see in my work every day is the wide variety of ways people see situations. It is my belief that you have chosen a course of actions which excludes me from your life. I am sorry and I am sad. I have always taught you to do what you think is right, and I am sure you feel you are doing so now. I have always applauded your honesty. I too have a strong set of beliefs. If I am to help finance your life, I require that I am involved in your decisions and your accomplishments. My surmise from your lack of communication with me this year about finances, grades, courses, and timetables means to me that you have chosen not to involve me in your life. I will be home at the end of June. Please come and visit if you have changed your mind or feel I have misrepresented you. I will always love you. Nothing you do will ever stop that. Remember that I feel I have not done anything wrong and have no reason to apologize to you. I am always willing. Love, Dad.
Getting this letter at 18 was like a gut punch. I felt like I have been trying to let him back into my life with patience and loyalty and love. And then I received this letter that I felt like had no context to my actual lived experience with him. How he'd been engaged with me, what he had been involved in. I heard the letter as a goodbye. And I didn't want to reach out, and I didn't reach out. And I also knew at the time that I was making a choice about my financial situation. My mother was moving and she couldn't provide financial support any longer. So not reaching out to my dad meant that I was going to be on my own at 18, which you're an adult. That's okay. But I knew that my tuition, my books, my car, my travel, my food, my room and board, all of that, I was going to have to pay for. But I decided at that time the cost to be in the relationship was just too great. And I think that was a very healing time for me. I was taking care of myself in a way that made me feel more powerful. And I was developing relationships with people who are now my chosen family. Let me introduce Curtis. We became friends in a nerdy way in the theater tech booth. And he's still so funny to me, and he cares so much about being a dad. His dad is someone that I know really well from hanging out with Curtis when I was growing up, but also he was my physics teacher in high school. And the last time Curtis went home, he didn't recognize Curtis. And I thought it was important to talk to Curtis about my estrangement and how he felt about it, given his situation with his father.
Yeah, it's like I'm inside the radio, inside the car. I'm not going to be able to use my normal voice or cadence. Define estrangement.
Oh, God.
For the estrangement naive in the room.
It's just like creating distance.
Oh, sorry.
No. So estrangement it's a way in which you're creating distance and boundaries in a difficult relationship. In what ways have you seen having the dad I have be a challenge for me?
I think maybe the most telling thing of all would just be the degree to which I just was never really aware of you having one.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, from the time we started hanging out, I can't remember your father ever being involved. Like someone, I think I maybe met him twice. Mm-hmm. He didn't figure into our immediate comings and goings. Mm-hmm. He was known to exist, but he was very much exterior to the aspects of your life that I was involved in.
Yeah, and we've been friends since we were 14 until now.
Maybe. It wasn't until, pretty well into adulthood that you began to speak about your relationship with him in this focused way, mm-hmm. and you brought in, language like estrangement, or like you were thinking really consciously about your relationship to this man and what you wanted, what you were willing to do. So it is hard for me to imagine being okay with it with their kid on purpose. I mean, my dad, I feel like there was a lot more that I wished he could have done.
Yeah.
But he did an awful lot too. And I don't feel like he ever really turned his back on us, mm-hmm. in any way. So that's something that's I can't really imagine having to deal with. It's hard for me to put myself in your position and imagine what it would be like to have to actually stop trying for anything at all.
Yeah. I struggle with, and I've questioned for many years, is me stopping the wrong thing? But then at the same time, if someone's hurting you in relationship, then that's where you need to let go. But am I the one that's turning my back by not trying and trying and trying and wringing myself out forever? But I think I know the answer is there's no solution. There's just as my grandmother said, it's a bottomless pit.
Do you sort of inventory your attempts, your efforts? I mean, it's like if you have a moment of doubt like that, where you're like, shit, did I mm-hmm. stop just short, or, or should I have kept trying with this guy?
Not anymore.
Did you used to though?
Yeah.
Could you go back and be like, oh no, wait, I did this and he did not pick that up. Like I walked to the line countless times and he never approached it. Like I was always the one bringing, mm-hmm. showing up. I
think I had let go of some of that. The idea of reciprocity, that was gone in my mind a long time ago. But
okay.
But like the thought of, I would always be moving. What's a good sports metaphor for this?
You're talking to the wrong guy.
The goalpost.
Moving the goalpost.
That's it. Moving the goalpost.
That is a phrase I've heard.
Okay. So moving the goalpost of okay, well, that didn't feel good to me, that reach out, but this one does feel good. I'm going to send a present and I'm going to call this many times. And then I kept moving it for myself so I could feel more comfortable. What can I do to feel comfortable in this relationship? And then it just continued to harm me over and over and over again. There was just no minimal amount that felt like I could live with in my body. There was just no amount that I could handle anymore. Do you have any thoughts about estrangement now that your father is a person that's no longer conscious of your relationship with him or your history with him? Your dad doesn't recognize you anymore. He doesn't recognize his wife anymore.
Well, there was a moment in that first episode of your podcast where you're talking with your grandmother about the idea that That what you get is what you get, like
Yeah.
in a person, right?
Yeah.
If there was someone to teach it to me, that would have been useful in life.
Yeah.
That actually I was not provided. There was no
Yeah.
guidance or mentorship in some pretty important areas about how to be a human being. And I'm doing some reconciling, I guess, of my understanding of my childhood and like being brought up by him like that. It was, initially I would normally have just said for most of my life, like, oh, it was great. It was like, we had a very happy childhood,
Yeah.
stable, well loved, provided for, and all that. But, I mean, there's still some stuff lacking, I guess. And for him to now not be accessible in any way,
Yeah.
it is tempting to resent the lack of opportunity now to try and connect with him.
Yeah.
But I did try
Yeah.
to, as I became more conscious of these things and like these things that I wished I had in my relationship with him, my father simply would not. I mean, he would in fact like quite decisively shut it down. Like a master, he would parry any attempt at overt intimacy. But he certainly showed a lot of love in many other ways. Like everything I could get from him, I kind of got.
Okay, I want to hear it one more time. The parts from him that I could get, I already got.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Like, which was very much just watching him by example, how he lived his life. That has like faded because he can't talk on the phone or something like that. Like there's no, yeah. So I guess like zooming back out, yeah, he was there for us. He was there for us in the best way he could and the only ways he knew. And I believe that.
Now you get to hear from Jessie. I'm so lucky to have her in my life. She's so open with her heart and loves me so much. She's not afraid to be emotional, and she's brave enough to offer me feedback on what I struggle with. And I really don't know who I would be without her.
Look, well, you said to me very recently, or maybe 10 years ago at this point, I'm not clear. You said, hey, we're all searching for meaning wherever we can find it. So,
Viktor Frankl. I didn't say it. He said it. Just stealing it. I'm having a conversation with you. I talked to Curtis.
Yes.
I just brought him in to put him in front of a microphone, and that was fun. And then I talked to Heather, and now I'm talking to you. So I'm excited.
Okay, good.
I'm hoping this
good.
gets me to a coherent place.
yes. Excellent.
When you think about him and our relationship, like what comes to mind for you
Yeah.
as someone who loves me?
The first thing that comes to mind, honestly, is that like it was way worse than like it's way worse to think about it now that you went through that for some reason because you were going through it then. Like it's just way worse to think about him doing that to you now. That's my first thought.
Yeah, because I have never been more mature than when I was 18.
Right.
And so I was able to say, oh, okay. So now you're not going to help me with tuition or anything else? Okay, got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But now that you have a child in college
Yeah.
and you know, it's like we're reparenting ourselves a little bit and we say, whoa.
That's the one. That's the one. I was going to say exactly right because we have kids that age and you're like, you can't, it's such a, like any transition is difficult, but that's such a difficult transition and all you'd want to do is help. You'd want to be smart and, have boundaries. You'd want to have boundaries, but you wouldn't like threaten your kid. Yeah. Yeah. When I think about, I think about him kind of separately from you, if that makes any sense, because like he already has never defined you. You don't resemble him at all. It's like he's had an effect on you. He was cruel and used fear. And I just find that so ugly and put so much shame into you. And I really feel mad about that when I think about that part, because again, how gross to say to someone, your own daughter, some of the things he said to you.
Yeah.
It's just horrendous. Like you just can't fathom it. And like as a point of control and superiority is like just makes it worse.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's hard. It's helpful to talk it through and, just allow myself the space, because sometimes I'm like, I don't want to talk about it, but now's the time.
Yeah.
I've asked you.
Yeah.
And it's like how to articulate the fear that he puts in my body. What lives in my body is, and this is the way that he used to control me. I need to put a bit of a trigger warning in here. I'm going to talk about physical restraint. And if you don't want to hear about it, just forward another minute and a half and it'll be over. We'd be playing, we'd be kind of roughhousing, which is why as a parent, I couldn't do any roughhousing with my kids. I don't do the tickling thing. And so we would tickle, and then something would shift for him. It would be like I had done something wrong and I needed to be put in my place. And he would rotate my arm behind my back.
Jesus.
And he would lever it up to create this sort of pain and discomfort in my shoulder. And the only way to relieve it would be like you move forward, you move to the ground. And so within seconds, you fall to the ground, or you're going to dislocate your shoulder, or you're going to break your arm, and my face would be on the ground. And he would do it to me, not Hillary, because I was like the strong athlete. And he would just turn, and I'm like, I'm shaking as I'm telling you this. But it's like I was okay because I knew if I just let myself into the hold and I put my face on the ground, my arm was not going to break. If I was calm and I didn't fight him, I was going to be okay. You know what I'm saying? And like, I did know that, but it evokes that fear in me. Like being around him is like, you never know when that submission hold is coming. Ugh. And like I don't know how many times he did it to me. 15 times, 30 times, 50 times. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
Really?
He's done it in public. He's done it. Ugh. He did it to me. And until probably like 13. And, it's like that feeling in my body. He came over one time in the last house we lived in.
Yes.
And he was so angry at me. He really liked to bait me about anti-racism because I care so much about the topic.
Cool.
Like, it's just something that's so important to me. It's going to be important to me my whole life. And he just is going to bait me about it. And he was doing something with that. And he screamed at me in my own home. And he like threw my drill down and he was yelling at me. And I yelled back at him. Wow. And I just like in my body, I'm 30 whatever years old. This is my mortgage. This is my home. And I, instead of throwing him out and saying, I think we're done here, I left the home and I just got in my car. I was retching on the side of the road. Yeah. And so I spent the night in someone's house. But those submission holds were the reason why I couldn't, or whatever it is. It's not just those holds. They're the reason why the whole control and domination is why I couldn't say to him, get out of here. Like, why didn't I just like ask him to leave?
Right.
The piece about this is so hard to explain to folks is like, you don't know him. You don't know like what happened between me and him.
Right.
And what he brings up in my body, I can't tolerate. I don't have the capacity to tolerate it then or now or anytime.
Yeah, like you said, like, talking about it is making your body. And if you want the way that I see it, I could relay it to you because I've seen it in your body. And it's I've seen it in your body many times. And it isn't always about him, but when you feel trapped, like either physically or maybe even emotionally. I've seen you work through that. I've seen you, want to get out of that dangerous space that was so inconsistent and unpredictable. So he's got unpredictability, and also people just need to understand that he's a big, tall guy also. Like, he's a big guy, and he can take up a lot of space or a little space, depending on like where he needs to be. And when he takes up a lot of space, it's a lot of space. But with your father specifically, when you told me that story just then, I really hear like the piece in it where the humiliation of doing it at all. And then in public is just wildly, wildly humiliating, again, shameful. And then like the thing I heard this time you telling this story is like he literally was like putting your pain into your own hands. Like you said, like all you knew that you could make it stop if you just did what you told you to.
Yeah.
And like that is just like, that is not a good way to operate, and that's not a good way to like be looking around a corner your whole life if someone's going to do that to you. It just really struck me that time to think about like little thin Leah, let me just say, because I will say the thinness is another way I see it in your body, and I've seen it in your body.
Yeah.
Your estrangement with your father physically manifest and grow and change and go through the phases of grief. I think it's appropriate that it's been having, because it's such a huge relationship. It's been such a huge revelation to hear some of the stories, you know what I mean? And because I have a kid in college, I realized too, like we didn't really talk about all the stories in college because again, we were ashamed, even though we were super open with each other and we did talk about a lot of things. I don't think we had the ability, we weren't old enough to be able to sum it up, like
Well, and I don't, and I don't think that I knew how much shame I feel. I had no idea how much like shame is running the show so much of the time. And it just like bleeds into everything. Did I make that phone call right? Did I do this right thing?
Yes.
Did I have the right engagement with this person?
Shame is right there. Well, I just like had this like vision of you, like when I picture your physical being, when I think these things are evoked or triggered, as the kids would say. But like this thing specifically, like I think like you are always moving, right? No wonder you're always moving, because you're literally don't know if someone's going to come around your back and make you save your own life again. And like, that's a lot of shame. And like to think about like who you are, like, that's like a lot of shame that's like making you run around and think that like that is possible again. And to think even that like that 30-year-old you that didn't throw him out, like that she's in there somewhere.
She is.
I kind of feel like she's in there, and she deserves her space. And also, 48-year-old you is still here, 49 when this airs, that you're here too to help her out and go, yeah, we'd never do that again. If I can tell the story about clocking your weight.
Oh yeah.
In regards
God,
to
I totally hadn't even thought about that.
Well, into both of these things, into shame and into humiliation and to like not being good enough and to like looking around all of the time and not feeling like good enough.
Because what I will say, and you've heard me say this, it's like this thing, when we go to public places, he would count the number of women who were thinner and the number of women who weighed more or were likely heavier than my stepmom.
Ugh.
What's my value?
Right.
Like the only thing is thin.
That's right.
Oh my God, it's so toxic.
So toxic.
And like, and it's just like,
right?
It lives in me. It's like trained every single time you go to the mall, you go to the movies, you go to the restaurant, clocking women's weight in a museum. It was constant.
Yeah.
It's there.
There. And it strikes me as like part of how like for me, it can explain a lot of like, I think of some of the ways that you attempt to regulate the anxiety it gives you. I think you put things on charts.
Yeah.
Some of this shit is good and bad, right? Like it's great when you make a chart, like your friends love it, but also it's not good when you're looking around like hating yourself and then like ironically not feeding yourself food because you don't think you're good enough and then actually making yourself skinny and then not even getting the approval anyway because you know the
approval's never coming.
No, it's never coming.
It's never coming.
Ever.
It's never, ever coming. I thought like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get the approval. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get the approval. I'm going to do,
Right. No, because like all the other shit, it was unconscious. It's just like, you're like you said, you're looking around and you're not consciously doing it, but you are. Please. I joke now. I walk in a room like, okay, just please love me. I'm so awkward. This is so, I'm like so weird. Like, please love me. I'm just so uncomfortable. Like,
I like to lead with that. I like to lead with that.
I like to lead with that. Then it's like, no one's confused. Like, what?
Exactly. My kids are like, people don't want to talk to you. And I'm like, they do. And I'm going to tell them. I'm not going to I'm not going to tell them like, okay, I'm estranged from my father. Not right from the get-go. But I am going to tell them like, okay, this is going to be awkward. But hey, how are you doing?
Exactly.
And it's amazing. Like the thing about my dad, because I had this crazy day at work today, living with that dad that I had and the chaos of all my childhood and like the weirdness of so many things. Like I am so freaking good at working in the emergency room. My life was like an emergency room. And my home life is, oh, it's crazy. I'm like, it's very familiar to me. But anyway, I was like, I was made for this.
Yes. Well, and can I point out one thing to your expertise that you've taught me is like when I hear you say like it's not all about me, like that is exactly something the oldest daughter of a narcissist would say because
It's never
like right, it's like you could never say anything fucking interesting or you couldn't have any experience interesting enough because no matter what you do, it's just not interesting enough.
I'm never going to be enough.
It's not the relationship you want to have with your kids, you know?
No. Oh my God. I'm so
right?
obsessed with my children. I so appreciate that you have empathy for the, I try not to I try not to be sad about it because it's just like nothing I can do. And I have had so many tears about this, like years and years of tears. But it's like, I do need to heal. And obviously that's why I want to talk about this is that I want people to hear each other and heal with each other and just feel, they're worth setting a boundary to say, I'm not going to take this from you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to, and I think that is an important part of the process. I mean, we talk about this all the time. It's like, we're not ever done growing through some of these things, but I am hoping, and I kind of saw it in my dad. He did something similar. He wrote in his book around our age now, like about this stuff and finally said things weren't all that kosher in my house. And it spurred a lot of conversation and another estrangement, and that's fine. And it was the only way he could heal. And I think that the more people talk about it, that you can discover that I don't want to take this anymore. And it doesn't say anything about me, my failure as a daughter, right? If it's a father-daughter relationship or parent-daughter relationship, it's like, it's not a failure on my part. Like, I know in my heart of hearts, I've done everything that I can. And in any other situation, I would walk away from this toxic thing and I have to walk away from it. And it's okay.
I just can see it clearer with the distance. I don't have this like ball of nervous shame just roiling inside my gut, just telling me I'm not good enough. Actually, I'm good enough. And I just couldn't give it anymore. And I think I didn't know that at the time, but I just was like, oh, wait, there's no more left. It's just nothing left to give.
Yeah. I'm proud of you.
So I'm bringing back Heather from the previous podcast because she and I are sounding boards for each other. She has watched me deal with this for my entire adult life. She is someone who's able to give me feedback, who's able to have some perspective about what I'm going through. There are some similarities with our life histories, and there are some differences. And we both have leaned on each other over the years to try and gain perspective about what it means and also just trying to be better people. Heather has a tattoo that says still growing, and I love that sentiment, and I keep it in mind every time I sit down at this computer to work on the podcast. So how do you feel like having the father I've had have you watched it be challenging for me?
Well, I have known you since we were both 18 years old. And so I knew that was a very, very complex, difficult, challenging person that you were in the midst of dealing with. And then over the course of time, like I've spent time with him. I've seen him be furious. I met him at our graduation. He's like so great. Like he's engaging and he's kind of dynamic. And there's parts of you in that too, which is kind of odd because I dislike him so deeply. But then to think that like he does have some really redeemable and kind of charming qualities to him. And you think, oh, he's pretty awesome. And then I got to see him like in his full version of curled lip, furious, enraged. And I don't even remember. It was something about a pizza, something totally benign. Just lost his mind. I was like, oh, there it is. Like there is the most stupid thing he completely flipped on. And I got to see it in real time. And I was like, this guy is fucking wild. I think you're one of the most, if not the most generous, forgiving, open, come back to the table type of person. And I've watched you do this for years to very challenging results with a person that is very self-centered and narcissistic and doesn't really care about another narrative. He just wants to push forward his narrative. And I think it's just been really, really hard to keep coming back to that over the years. But I've watched you do it and I have admired it. And I also really admire your decision to step back from it. But I know it was really challenging to do it because it's not how you operate. You keep coming forward.
Yeah.
I think it was a very difficult decision to step back from it. But I think I'm proud of you. It's sad and it's hard. And one of the things I really value is how you've connected so deeply with his family. Mm-hmm. I love the relationship that you have with your grandmother, his mom, and your aunts, and the efforts that you've made to be with them and to learn of that family history and to sort of connect in that way, despite the rift with him. What's a nice, kind, loving way to say, I can't be in your orbit anymore, and so that you feel like you're not being an asshole, but you're being firm?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of playbooks for this, we get to see what someone else did because we're all doing this alone.
I think every single person is going to do it differently. Because I didn't have a playbook and because this is such an individual journey, I didn't know what to do. And I feel like I've had some openings over the years to say, maybe this is the time, but I just never took it. I just want it to be something that it's not. And I can't,
If you do all the right things, or if you keep showing up, or if you send a gift, or if you try again and bring your best self to it, then it's going to be better. But at some point, like, there's a reckoning with that is not possible. It's very hard. I still feel very in the midst of navigating that.
And I think that's something that's so interesting about my grandfather's death is that he went there when he was dying and he was there at hospice care and wiping his lips and changing his diaper and doing all that stuff. And my father was not accepted by his father. And there was never a point where they held each other and they said, whatever. That never came. And he always wanted that. And I know that's a pain in his life. And I can have empathy and sympathy for that pain that, his dad didn't love him the way that he needed to be loved by his father. I imagine that was very difficult for my father.
You have to make your peace with, that story is not yours. That whatever you imagine, or a reconciliation, or a holding, or whatever, that's the letting go. Mm-hmm. That's so hard to do. I only have control over my own behavior, but I can't change my dad. We can't make people be something that they're not. And so if we continue to be hurt by it, then that's where we have to make this decision around. And I'm proud of you for doing it.
I don't think I could have come to this when I was 25. I don't think I could have come to this when I was 30.
Maturity. Who knows? Therapy.
Personal growth. It's the best therapist I've ever had.
Oh yeah, maybe. I think that doesn't feel. I just to say it doesn't feel great on the other side either. It's not like I got to the other side and I'm living in my best life. Right? It's still painful. It still hurts. You still have to do the work in therapy. It's not just because this person is estranged, or that you've cut them off, or that you've made a boundary that it's like you're sitting pretty. Right? That's I think a helpful myth to bust, right? That It's not like on the other side it all feels good. It's just a different feeling, and there's some level of agency.
Yes.
That you have now.
The piece that feels good to me is making a choice for yourself in your life about how you want to live. Because if I am so flailing and out of control, I also know that when I'm like that, it impacts my whole home life. So all of this leads to the following email exchange that I had with my dad 3 years ago that ended our communication. He sent me an email and I sent one back about a week later, and we have not had communication since that time.
Leah, our relationship has been up and down over the years. I think it is safe to say, without speaking for you too much, that we both feel hurt and neglected. My wife and I have a wonderful 20-year relationship, where we have learned to only talk about how we feel, not what the other has done or said. I will attempt that here. I think about talking to you often and wonder how things are going in your complicated and very full life. If I call, you return the call promptly, and I am always grateful. Try as I might to stay away from our shared history, I often feel corrected about my mistaken memory of events in a way that leaves me no room for my view. I don't feel able to maintain my sense of self unless the topic is one where it is obvious that I am experienced. It is unclear to me what I have done over the years that has kept you away from a visit from us and what seems to keep us both on edge. I don't doubt that your feelings are justified. I have never felt that I have permission to say when I am hurt. I ran away from my father when I thought that he was about to beat me and continue to keep that pattern today. I appreciate your close contact with my mom. Mom mentions it in every call I make to her. I know that much of your busy life is like that. I have no idea how to bridge the divide between us. I think you are a kind, generous person, and I have faith that we can talk frankly about what you and I both expect from our relationship. I will be very sad if you tell me to keep my distance. I will do so and continue to think of you and your family fondly.
Dear Dad, I want to thank you for your letter. I'm grateful for the thoughtfulness that comes through as I read it. I also want you to be your whole self and feel all the feelings. I want you to experience the full range of emotions. I want you to be validated for who you are and what you have accomplished. I want you to have your point of view and fond memories of your life and your past. I'm grateful you're on this journey with your wife, and there's so much healing that can come from that. I think that given the context of wanting those things for you, the space that I provide will not be healing. I feel I will likely not agree with your version of history, which will continue to negate your sense of self. I don't want that for you, and I also don't want that for me. I don't want to feel on edge either. These are important aspects of our mental wellness that we are talking about. I think that I can go forth into the world with affection and hope for you from afar. I don't believe that there is a middle that we can meet in. I wish you all the healing. With love, Leah. Today's episode brought to you by producers and editors Leah Mena and Chris Mena. Music by Finn Herman. Thank you for joining us on Stories of Estrangement. We hope today's conversation has offered you insight, comfort, or a fresh perspective. If you'd like to share your story or connect with our community, visit us on our website, storiesofelstrangement.com, or leave us a message at 1-844-ESTRANGE. That's 1-844-378-7264. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It helps us reach more listeners like you. Until next time, remember, healing and understanding are journeys, not destinations.